Good morning, my dear friends. Finally, we have this warm weather in the UK, and our roses love it. You can see that they're enjoying a bit of sunshine as we are as well. They're all shining. I love it. What I'm going to talk about in this video today is something called blind shoots or blind stems, which we come up today and we have seen this year quite often in our gardens. Why this happened? Because we had a very cold weather, like cold nights especially, and wet, really wet spring. And we come up to this condition of our roses, which we had lots of blind stems appearing in our gardens and on our roses. And I kind of don't have an example to show you in my garden what is actually the blind stems, but JJ kindly sent me the video from his garden, from one of his roses, to show the example what is the blind stem is, and I'll include that video in my video and explain what is that, and you can actually clearly see, and it is a very good example, and thank you JJ for this very good example to show what is the blind stem. This is distant drum rose from JJ's garden, and JJ can show you now the blind stems. What is blind stems? Blind stems is the stems where the growing point is stagnated and not developing. You can see this now clearly. And it means these stems not gonna give bud, it's gonna be flowerless. You can see it very clearly. The growing point is dead. And these stems is not going to grow, it's not going to give flowers. And something needs to be done to develop these stems to grow and finally to bloom. I will show as an example on this rose, which is called Red Leonardo da Vinci. As you can see, every single stem have to finish with this formed stem with the developed top, which give a bud. I mean, there is no bud at the moment, but it will be. Every single stem, let me get out from the sun. Every single stem finish with the formed top. This is how it should be. This is what we have to achieve on the rose. When every single stem finishes with the developed top, which finally give a flower. Oops, let me focus. Yes, which finally give a flower. And what is the most common method to deal with the blind stems is to prune the rose, to prune the blind stems, to cut the rose back, to cut the stem back. Some sources say is to cut half back. Some sources say to cut back until the first 5 leaves, like this. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like until the first 5 leaves. I cut until the first developed. If I see the very well developed stem. I cut until the first developed stem, and it's kind of growing well. You can see that it is start developing well. You kind of cut it back. The reason why you cut it back, you stop the rose to lose the strength, to give strength to this blind spot, and reroute the strength of the rose to the new stem. That's why rose start using her strength to develop the new stem. But because I'm the person who likes to experiment, I didn't stop with just pruning. I did something else, and I experimented and did something else. What I did, I used the cocktail of useful stuff, which I'm going to share with you, and you can see the result, where these blind stems started to revive and come back to life. As you can see, this is where the blind stem was. This is where the tip of the growing point died. As you can see, the new growing top start developing. You can see here on this side as well. You can see here as well. And I'm really happy with my experiment. Oh, I love to experiment. I really love to experiment and find some new ways of dealing with the problems with roses. And especially it's for people who is like me, don't have that much time to spend in the garden. I have 3 jobs and I have 100+ roses, and sometimes I don't have that much time, which I wish I had, to spend in the garden, to prune the roses, to cut the roses. Unfortunately, I don't. And that's why I'm trying to find a ways to make my life easier and to enjoy my roses more. This is why I experiment and find the ways how to deal with the problems. And it seems it's working. And I'm happy with that. And I'm going to share with you what I did. And I'm going to show you the result on other roses. By the way, this is the rose called Hare's Ass. And this is a standard tree. It's a quarter standard tree, but this is a hybrid tea rose. And hybrid tea roses prone to have blind stems more often than floribundas or ground covers. That's why it's a good result for hybrid tea to come back to life. And you can see here as well, it's growing back. That is why it might take there's pros and cons always if you experiment with something. One of the cons, it takes a bit longer. When you prune the blind stem, it might take quicker to have a new stem. But with the feeding, oops, my finger was all the time probably, I'm sorry about this. With the feeding, it might take a bit longer, but it works very well. And as I said, especially for people who don't have time, like me, not much time, you can use this magic cocktail. And believe me, it's very easy. Here is the result where I pruned the blind stem. You can see this is the new stem growing quite good. And as you said, the result is much quicker. You saw the result on Hair's Us, that on the previous rows, that is just giving the kind of like new shoots, probably 1/3 of this height. But after the cutting, after the pruning, you see the result of this rose is just grew quite tall already. As I said, the pruning, the cutting, the result you see quicker. When you prune, when you cut, you probably see the result in a 3 weeks, in a 2 to 3 weeks time. With the feeding, you might see the result after 3.5, 4 weeks. You will start see the result. That's why it's up to you which way you prefer to use and how busy or free you are. This is also a very good example to show. This is a Japanese rose. This is my first time actually growing the Japanese rose. This is Japanese rose called Eurydice. This is from Barney. And you can see again, let me focus again because the focus losing the focus. You can see here, you can actually see there was a blind stem. Proper and very good example of the blind stem. And you can see there is a black spot here. And this is where the growing point of the stem is actually dead. It's died. What is the traditional method of the dealing with the blind spot would be to cut it to the first 5 leaves. You can see 1, 2, 3. This leaf I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the first 5 leaf. I should have cut it here. But instead, what I did, I fed the rose with this magic cocktail. And I waited to see the result. And you see, there is a new growing point started. It started developing from the top here. It start growing. If I cut it before, I would have had the result quicker. As I said before, maybe it will be already, as you can see here, it's also growing from here. If I cut it here, this point would have grown from here already. But I decided to experiment, as I love to experiment. I left it, I fed it, and it's growing nicely from the top. And as I said, it is completely up to the person. It's up to you. What would you prefer? You prefer to cut, or you prefer to feed and wait for the result? It's actually a very good example. This is not going to grow anymore, but it's going to grow from here. At the same time, this cocktail gave it actually very good result to grow. Give a very good boost to grow other stems as well. It's not basil shoots. Basil shoots normally comes from the roots, but it gives kind of new stems. I'm actually happy with the result. I love it. And finally, what is this? Ingredients of the magic cocktail. It's actually very easy and quite not cheap, but not expensive. Ingredients for this cocktail. First of all, seaweed. which all of us know it's a very, very, very nice ingredient to grow the roses. This one is Epsom salt. I keep it in a container. It normally sells in boxes, but when you open the box and then I keep it, I've got like a cupboard for all my products for the roses, and sometimes these things in the cupboard get wet. But if the Epsom salt got wet, it loses the strength. That's why I keep it in a container. And Epsom salt is actually magnificent source for the roses. And what is this? I'm gonna do a separate video about this product. But what is this actually? This is a PK, and it is very similar to Uncle Tom. You can use Uncle Tom, the main ingredient of Uncle Tom. This is P for phosphorus and K for potassium. It doesn't consist sodium. It's only phosphorus and potassium. You can use Uncle Tom. It's exactly the same as Uncle Tom. Seaweed, Epsom salt. But what I want to say, I'm not mixing these three together. What do? I mix seaweed with PK, with Uncle Tom, seaweed with Uncle Tom, or Epsom salt with seaweed. This is how it's like put it in a queue. That's why I put seaweed in the middle. 1 week I do Epsom salt with seaweed and I feed the rose. Next week I do PK with seaweed, and it is another week. And I feed this once in a week. Seaweed with Epsom salt 1 week, seaweed with PK another week. This is how I do this magic cocktails. When you have the result, and you can see that the blind stems, the growing points start showing up. You don't feed it like weekly anymore. You start feeding them as you normally feed the rose. Depends on your schedule, how you normally feed them. You just follow the schedule, what you normally feed. Like you feed them with David Austin granulated food, or you feed them with the soluble food. You just follow the routine feeding for roses after, when these growing points start showing up. You don't need to carry on weekly feeding of these 3 ingredients. I hope this was helpful, and please ask me questions in the comments and I'm happy to answer. Have a good day.